Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's a day of Simcha, but in many ways, this week's Torah portion is seen as a tragedy. And I want to read for you the central story in this week's Torah portion, and I want to hear from you what you think. And it's going to be relatively clear. What makes for you this a tragic story? And I'm opening up on page 632. Page 632. Vaychu b'nei Aharon Nadav v'Avihu ish mach tato vayitnu b'hen eish. Now Aaron's son, Aaron is the high priest, Nadav and Avihu each took their fire pan. They put fire in it and laid incense on it. And they offered before the Lord Eish Zara, an alien fire, which he had not enjoined upon them. And fire came forth, and the Lord consumed them, thus they died at the instance of the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, Through those near to me I shall myself be holy and gain glory before all the people." Vayidom Aharon. And Aaron was silent. What's the tragedy of this story in this week's Torah portion? Milt, yeah?
There's a lot of controversy. There's some discussion they were drunk, but in others they were moved internally, but they were not following specifically the commandments of God. So for this, they were punished. Then, and Aaron is silent, which is also a very, very sad kind.
So tragedy is a story with a sad ending. And Milt is providing a couple of answers. One is the silence of the father. The other is that they didn't have the right intention of what they were doing. There were other ones. But as I was reading, just to revisit what I shared, this is the death of Aaron's children, Nadav and Avihu, because as the text teaches us, they offered a strange fire. So what's tragic about that? Everyone's okay with that? Makes perfect sense. By the way, in Jewish spaces, you can't just say Nadav and Avihu without there being a pause of, that was a tough story. Because along with their names comes this idea, and I'll share for you. These two children lose their lives. And they lose them tragically trying to offer a fire to God. The rabbis, in many ways, lean into this tragedy and are trying to explain why. If it's a tragedy, there must be some type of lesson that couldn't be violated, and thus, there's a tragic consequence. One of the ways they explain this is, by the way, through what Milt shared. At the end of this story, we randomly hear the laws of you should not drink alcohol before coming to serve God. And they say, here's the lesson. They were drunk, right? And there's a tragic ending when we imbibe alcohol. There's another midrash. And the midrash teaches, what were Nadav and Avihu doing? They were trying to show Moses and Aaron that they could do it by themselves on their own terms. The previous generation had given guidance, and now it was their turn to take the lead. And alas, trying to break with authority, trying to break from the tradition that came before them, leads to a tragic loss of life. Now, for me, the tragedy is the lesson of those two stories. Because where this Torah portion then leads us is, when you break boundaries, then there is going to be loss and destruction. And that, by the way, pales in that it's ironic because what begins our journey as the people of Israel? Abraham. And Abraham is known as, SAT word, those who are about to take them, an iconoclast. He breaks down the previous models for a new way of seeing the world. This is our forefather. And here we have a story that teaches the exact opposite. Oh, don't break the previous models. The way Aaron and Moses do it, you should stay with that. And even wine. What is wine? Wine breaks down boundaries. It is through wine that one can enhance the idea of finding joy. And here the story says, no, stay away from wine or anything that can break down the mold of boundaries. And again, it goes against the theme of what it means to be a child of Abraham. So, what I will share is, even though the rabbis, there's a big thrust to saying, don't question or approach boundaries, there's a hidden message in this week's Torah portion that says, actually, it is still okay. There is still something to be gained when we approach boundaries. And that, by the way, comes from the name of this week's Torah portion, which is Shemini. Does anyone hear a number in the word Shemini? Shmona, 8. 8 is a big number in Judaism. Many of us are familiar with 7, because 7 is related to Shabbat, or the idea of a complete circle of the week. 7 is completion. We look at 7 as being a way of seeing the world in an orderly manner. When we approach a day like today on Shabbat, we envision as if we have everything that it is that we need. There is no reason to pursue more. There's no reason to break any ceilings because all is as it should be. 8 says, actually, there is something beyond 7. There is something that we can't limit ourselves to in 7. We talk about 8 as being the next level. It is the number of growth. And therefore, we have a Brit Milah on the 8th day, showing that now you've gone through one cycle of a week. It's time to take that next step to start improving the world around you. Hanukkah is an 8-day holiday. Why? One other answer I'll share with you is the rabbis knew the temple wasn't complete just simply by being as it should be, but we had to use the temple for a sacred purpose. We had to then share the light of the temple outward. The word of Hanukkah, by the way, comes from the same word as chinuch, education. Again, this idea that I don't carry what's within me, but I share it outward. Some of you are musical in the room, and I am not as musical as some of the people in this room, but you can appreciate the power of 8 musically. Now let me see if I get this right. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? And do is the next octave, okay? And it shows that here I've gone through a full unit of music, and now I'm going to go back to the same note, but with more power on a different level. That's what 8 hints at. When Moses sings, the 2 times he sings in the Torah, the first words of Moses' songs are always the Hebrew word az, and then. Just literally, which means, okay, there's going to be something else. We're not complete at where we're at. We're always looking towards the future. And if you take the numeric value of Aleph and Zayin, it adds up to 8. So Shemini, the name of this week's Torah portion, hints that we won't settle by refusing to approach boundaries. There is something that we will not let go of. So while there are consequences when we break boundaries, there are also consequences for living a Jewish life where we refuse to approach our norms and avoid the opportunity for growth. I think about this tension, by the way, when I think about what most recently occurred yesterday, which is an amazing thing happened. the lunar lander, the Artemis, returned to this earth. And during this entire process, I watched it with attention of, oh man, I'm so scared about what might happen. What are we doing sending these human beings into space? And I kept on being filled with images of those you recall the Challenger or other catastrophes that took place in our human project of trying to ad astra, to try to go to the stars and beyond. And along with that anxiety came a sense of awe and excitement of, look at what we are doing as a human race. Look at how we are coming together, utilizing our technology, challenging what we know to try to go above and beyond. And I never would be filled with that sense of awe and excitement had we not had the audacity to try to approach the ceilings that exist in our lives. I wish it was I wish it would be true that it would be impossible for every time we try to go to the stars that we wouldn't have to deal with the vulnerability of tragedy. And yet, we march onward. And I think that is the message of this week's Torah portion. Yes, every time we break boundaries, there is risk to us. We should not drink alcohol with a sense of abandon that nothing can occur to us. Yes, there are risks that we take, and therefore we think of things like guidelines and moderation. That's a whole other Devar Torah. But if we, simple as a Jewish people, and as a member of the human race, if we abandon risk, if we abandon approaching the ceilings that exist in our lives, then we will let go of what it means to be a becoming people that are growing. We will then abandon the idea of hope, that we can bring some new truth to the world of which we live in. So with that sense of both awe and anxiety, that sense of hope and concern, may we move forward to the study of the Torah portion called the Eighth with excitement about perhaps what we can bring in the days to come. Shabbat Shalom.